God forgives unconditionally, so can we. The thief on the cross still dies on his cross, but forgiveness will set his spirit free. And what of you and me, standing on the ground with our piles of hurts mounting so high? Will we die 1,000 deaths before we die? Yearning for revenge, will we die of that thirst? Will the rage that fills us be the stake on which we burn? Will we stumble over every resistance placed in our way and stay stuck in the misery of it all? Or will we take the chance that we might break free from following this path where it leads, past the whys and lies about how it cannot be? Here is our chance. Take this chance. Break free. Thank you. And so we are very aware of the journey that we've all been on. Some of us were able to listen to our state president speaking last night and his declaration to the nation. Some of us were able to read it. And then we also have the news around what is happening in communities as a result of Hurricane Dorian. This morning there was an excerpt on the news I was listening to of a woman sobbing, and other than having lost everything, she was talking about people shooting each other for food. Now, it is right and it is godly to grieve. It is right and it is godly to lament. My concern is, and yes, it might still be too early, my concern is, when is our language going to include forgiveness? Our president had to make and put together a speech in a very short time. And as I was reading it, I was grateful that he called upon religious communities to be part of the involvement in helping our society retrieve its balance and its compass and some sort of reconciliation and redemption. However, making any sort of statement of increasing penalties for people who have raped and murdered women, to put the death sentence in place, does not address the fact that we need change of heart. There's no legislation that can transform people's hearts. And that, I believe, is where our responsibility comes in. Because really, to be quite blunt about it, we proclaim our faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, in a God who has tremendous power to transform and to redeem. And we either believe that or we don't. It's as simple as that, and as hard as that. If we believe that Jesus can change the hearts of people, then my prayer is that we will be part of the energy that will be feeding into that. You'll notice I'm wearing red, even although we're in the green season, because I really feel, can we see this as the blood of martyrs? Now, the blood of martyrs will always feed a fruitfulness that leads to greater life, rather than taking and retaliating and creating a cycle of revenge. And my plea for all of us, of all faiths, is that we will go back to the very foundation of our faith, which is that everybody is available and God will give redemption to anybody who seeks it. Nobody is a complete lost cause. Because if we say anybody is, then we believe that God is not powerful. That God's power is in fact less than whatever anybody has perpetrated. And so it feels useful just for ourselves to go through, and yes, it is in some ways quite simple, and we can't go through all the complexities and nuances of the revenge cycle and the forgiveness cycle, which you have on the back of that piece of paper, and again is from the book of forgiveness, because there's something about our intentionality to start operating in the forgiveness cycle that might well, and I believe will be, something of the tipping point to say, yes, we can do legislation, but we believe that there is something even more transcendent and transformative that we want to imprint on the atmosphere and that we want people to receive. So, how the picture works is you'll see in the center of the page, in a little box, it's got hurt, harm, loss. Those are the trigger points. Those are something that has happened either to us, or through us, or because of us, or even we've done it to ourselves, whatever it is. But given where we are as a world and what's been happening, let's say it's something that's happened to us as a society, as individuals. If we choose the revenge cycle, the go-to point is retaliation. And so we make a choice. And you'll see there that those two things are on a par on the two cycles, because we all stand at that point of choice. We either choose to retaliate and take revenge, or we choose the path of healing. They take time, especially the path of healing. There's no quick fix, and we often need to go back and redo. But if we choose the revenge cycle, what happens is then we reject the shared humanity of the person who has done whatever it is to hurt, harm, or cause loss in our lives. Because we are saying they don't deserve God's forgiveness, God's redemption, all of those things. We are saying we are actually better than them. We deserve it, they don't. So there's a rejection of shared humanity. And because of that rejection, we're able to label the person either as the enemy, the criminal, the rapist, whatever it is. And as soon as we start labeling, we also add to that dehumanizing part of it, and then it's very easy to go into revenge, retaliation, some sort of payback. And we need to be aware that that can even take the form of government policy. And then out of that, we feel we're justified to be violent, to be cruel. The whole eye for an eye thing. And it was Gandhi himself who said if everybody did do an eye for an eye, we'd end up blind. Mm. And then we would start again in the cycle. It's a very vicious cycle because you don't leave it. If we choose the path of healing, we know it is highly unlikely that anybody can do it on their own. At the very least, we need a support system. So the first thing you do is you choose appropriate people. For us, it might be, in fact, our faith, our deity. And you ask them to accompany you on this journey. And the first thing you would do, again, to appropriate people is tell the story. Just tell your story of what has happened and how it happened and so on. Just tell the story. The second thing one has to do after that is to name the hurt. In other words, look at the emotions. And in those emotions, again, please note, this is not going to be a clear, this is all very neatly put out there, but we often go backwards and forwards as the need arises. It can be quite messy, but very worthwhile. In the naming of the hurt, in the naming of the emotions that have been provoked and evoked through this, we will go through the stages of grief that eminent Swiss psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross spoke about. But again, we don't do it neatly in the stages. You know, the stages are the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, and then the acceptance. I believe there's another step. I believe it is possible after acceptance to go to transcendence or transformation. So we go through all of those, backwards and forwards and up and down, and we can't tell how long each stage or experience in that process will happen. And then the way in which both Archbishop Emeritus Desmond and Mpho talk about step 3 is the granting of forgiveness, and naturally it's helpful if we can ask God to forgive through us. But part of the very practical ways to start looking at shared humanity. And on a very base level, it's about putting ourselves in the feet, in the shoes of the other person and saying, if I had gone through what this person has, if we're able to know what it is, maybe I would have done what they have done. But it is to look at the reality that none of us is so pure, none of us is so perfect that we are not capable of the most horrendous things. We can never say we will never, because we don't know what it takes to tip us over into causing tremendous harm and loss to others. And it's in that recognizing of the shared humanity that we can start the process of either renewing or releasing. And the renewing and the releasing are very interesting as well. The renewing is that if the person has come to remorse and said, I'm sorry, it's possible then to start working on a new form of relationship. We can't go back to what the relationship was, but a new form of relationship, and it would be possible even to improve it, depending. Sometimes, though, it's not appropriate, nor is it possible. The person might have died, the person might be in a condition of Alzheimer's, whatever. It might not be possible to do that. It might also not be in your best interests to renew the relationship if the person's an abuser, a sociopath, whatever it is. In that case, we need to release the relationship. Because if we hold on to what that relationship means in its unwellness, it will keep infecting us. And we're talking about needing to be healed, so we need to just release that person from our lives so that we can continue in the healing. A useful cycle, a useful way not to measure so much, but to honor where we are in the process as individuals, as communities, as countries, and as a world. If we wait for anybody else to begin it, we will wait forever. It needs to start with us, because again and again we are called by our Lord Jesus to be the aroma, the flavor. And you don't need a lot of any spice or anything in any foodstuffs to give it that amazing sense of a tang. You don't need a lot of pure perfume to fill a room. And that's true of any of this as well. But let's start with ourselves and know that God will use it. Believe it. Because we have a God who fulfills things irrespective. But let's be the wonderful, proactive, intentional collaborators with God in this. Because we are the hope. All people who can see a vision that will take us beyond where we are. All people who are willing to be part of the transformative energy will become this extraordinary sense of almost like coffee beans percolating the whole atmosphere. And we thank God that we can be part of that and that greatness of hope. Amen.
Amen.